Jack Howard serves as a strategic program and communication lead to establish Ally as the leading voice in financial health and wellness, with a focus on money psychology and behavioral finance education. She's also the secretary for the Ally Charitable Foundation. As a passionate advocate for financial social inclusion, Jack is committed to being a changemaker by creating programs that help prepare Brown and Black communities with tools for wealth creation that recognize the significant historical wealth disparities faced by those communities. Jack is an accomplished and active professional on boards for the American Bankers Association Foundation, the Society for Financial Education and Professional Development, and the Boys and Girls Club of Southeastern Michigan. In 2022, Jack was recognized as an outstanding alumni by the Communications, Arts, and Sciences College of her undergraduate alma mater, Michigan State University. She also served as a mentor to entrepreneurs on Roku's series, Side Hustlers. On the show, Jack helped aspiring business owners uncover their past relationship with money while showing them how to build a better financial future. Jack Howard, welcome.
Hey there. I am deeply passionate about this topic and so excited to talk to you and get into this.
I know how passionate you are about this, and you have done so much in your career to really make some change when it comes to personal finance, especially for groups and communities who face wealth disparities. Why do you do this work?
Okay. So before I get into the why I do this work, I got to give you a little bit of my history. So
Okay.
I've worked for Ally for nearly 15 years in various roles. And I started out in our corporate citizenship function where I was an associate manager and I moved on to help lead it. But within that role, a lot of it was financial education, corporate giving to nonprofits, employee volunteerism. Then I got the itch to do something new and moved to our wealth business where I served as our an interim chief of staff for the invest president and ended up staying to launch our wealth advisory business, which is when I gained this knowledge of money psychology. So why does this matter? When I was teaching financial education, specifically in underserved communities, it's primarily all skill based. So it's what's your credit score? What's your net worth? Are you saving? Do you have a budget? All of these skills that we want people to perfect. But once I learned about money psychology and behavioral finance and money wellness, it was the missing link of realizing that so many people, I know I shouldn't spend more than I make. We know that. I know I should have, aim to have a good credit score. But a lot of people have behaviors, irrational beliefs, irrational thoughts that will stop you from implementing the skills. And that missing piece really deepened my commitment to helping Black and Brown communities and women, because I think oftentimes we're not included in these money conversations or we have fears around them, the things that society has taught us about it. So it's a deep passion of mine to help people to understand their behavior so that we can better implement the skills because a lot of folks just don't have it.
Well, certainly, I work with so many women who have ceded financial control to their husbands. And it's most cases, it's not nefarious. It is just how their family works. And a lot of women are feeling less comfortable with the finances and they feel like, I trust my husband. Let's go ahead and let him handle the budget. He likes to do that. Really creates a problem if there is a breakup down the road. But just having little financial independence is such a problem for me. And I think you're right that it all goes back to that psychology.
Mhm. Even if it's a divorce, what if, God forbid, your partner passes away and you don't know what's happening with your finances? It's really it should be a partnership. I deeply believe that within your relationship, these are conversations that we need to have. I encourage money date nights where you can meet with your partner at least once a month, even weekly, to talk about not only the mindset and the beliefs that you have about money, so more of your money roots, but also get into the skills. And it has to be a partnership in order for both people to show up fully and to get what they need out of the money. And ultimately, I believe the goal of money is to help you to have amazing experiences. how to use money to create your best life. And you can't do that if you're not verbalizing that. How can a woman say, my ultimate dream is to have a summer home or a winter home in Florida if her husband doesn't know that? So these conversations need to take place to ensure that both parties are getting what they want.
I have always said money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys choices. And that's what's important to me is being able to have choices, to know that if I want to spend some money frivolously, that is an option to me. If I have a cause that's important to me, it is an option for me to be able to financially support that cause. And so today we are talking about bridging love and money. But before we get really into it, I want to ask you, what is something in this space of money, finance, wealth that you're incredibly proud of doing or accomplishing?
I am deeply proud of my work here at Ally. So I mentioned I've been here for 15 years and I've jumped around. I'm the person that always will raise my hand and say, I have an idea. And my most recent idea was to launch a money wellness curriculum that's completely free to our customers and community that goes deep into a lot of that money wellness. And it's 4 workshops. So for this to go from an idea in my head to an actual thing that we're implementing, and then to work with folks during the classes and to hear them say, "Oh, I never thought of money that way." I'm deeply, deeply proud of the work because I know it's changing lives. It's helping people to have a better relationship with money.
Well, especially if you are familiar with corporate America and how companies think, and there's a lot of focus on the bottom line, and to pitch something that is completely free to your customers, right? And someone saying, but how do you measure success with this? How does this add to our bottom line? Kudos to you for getting that to move forward and become a reality.
Thank you. I have to give a big shout out to my leadership here. So I have had an amazing group of mentors and sponsors at Ally where, and this place is pretty different than most corporate America environments where really being a disruptor is encouraged. Thinking outside the box, having moxie and coming up with cool ideas is really encouraged. So I've always had a space here to verbalize what I want for my career and also to verbalize looking around corners and saying like, we've been doing financial literacy the wrong way, in my opinion. I think we really need to look at it through the lens of wellness as a part of a person's total well being. So, your money impacts your physical fitness and your health. Your money impacts your mental well being. It impacts your relationships and your love. It impacts how you show up in your community. And we need to have more of a holistic view of looking at money, in my opinion, because it shows up in all those places and it deeply impacts your well being across the board.
Well, a lot of people would just say, get a budget, stick to it, and you'll be fine. No, no, no. It's so much more than that, right?
You just terrified me when you said budget. So, a secret about me is that I've worked in banking for 15 years and I hate budgeting. I hate budgeting. My money story is deeply um, embedded in having credit card debt and paying it off. That's a part of my money story. So when we say the word budget, I think that it's skill based. It's easy to tell someone that you should have a budget and follow this, but for some people, that's hard. For me, it is. So instead of having a budget, I really ground my spending in my values. Is this a part of my values, which are my family, buying really beautiful things, creating generational wealth in my spirituality? So when I spend, I'm looking at things through that lens, which helps me to curb and automation too. It helps me to not spend on things that I don't need, but it's really individual. Having a budget is good for some people, and having a values-based spending plan also works.
There are a lot of people who don't know how much money they're making next week. They work in a job where their earnings are uncertain. And to have that kind of person be on some sort of strict budget, I think is completely unrealistic for them.
It is unrealistic, and also, will you stick to it? So we have got to get away from this relationship with money of feeling afraid. And my work at Ally, I deeply want to be your money best friend, a safe place for you to land with money, no matter where you are on your journey. And when we create these things that feel impossible for some people, it makes them have a negative relationship with money. When if you shift to one where you're doing things that really work for you and resonate with your style, it helps it to become a more positive relationship and it becomes more rewarding. Dare I say, you'll want to start saving and budgeting and all those things when you find a system that works for you.
Right. I think there's a lot of fear surrounding money and there's a lot of shame. So if someone is pushing budgeting on you and you can't seem to stick to that budget, you're going to be shaming yourself even more and it's going to create more negativity. It certainly isn't going to enforce positive behaviors around money.
Now imagine that showing up in your romantic partnership where your partner is into budgeting and you're not, your partner is saying, we got to do this, we got to do this, and you can't stick to it. That creates so much shame and resentment for the person that can't stick to it. When if you were to have a money date night and sit down and talk about those early money memories, I don't know, maybe your partner doesn't like budgeting because they had a bad experience with it growing up as a kid. I don't know. Everybody has a different story, but getting to the roots of those issues with your partner and coming up with a new path forward helps you to really get to the goal of we want to spend less than we make and we want to invest the difference. So that's the ultimate goal, and how you get there has to be a part of your partnership.
Well, you've mentioned the money story a few times now, and I want to talk about what a money story is and why we need to understand our own money story to understand our financial behaviors.
Your money story is your personal narrative about money, and it starts as early as 2 or 3. And these are the things that you heard from your parents about money, what you learned from society about money. It creates your beliefs. It creates your rational and irrational thoughts about money. All of the messages that you've heard about money from birth until this point creates your money story. Why is that important? Because oftentimes, and I have the pleasure of teaching a money story class through our Money Roots program here at Ally. And when I'm teaching it, it's so amazing to see people one, uncover their money story, those early beliefs, and then make that connection to how it's showing up today. Oh, I have this belief and it's showing up with me creating credit card debt. For me, specifically with my money story, it's really deeply grounded in using money to hide emotions. So I will be the person that when I'm feeling sad, I'm going online and I'm going to buy another pair of black pants. And when you realize that that's a part of your money story, it now forces me to look at my emotions and say, "Hey, Jack, what's going on?" Because the black pants will not fix it. We got to maybe call our therapist or call a girlfriend and unpack what's really going on, because spending isn't going to solve it. But I wouldn't have realized that without my money story work.
Just to be clear, you can never have too many pairs of black pants.
Yes, you can. I personally disagree.
Oh, okay. I know you've learned some really important financial lessons from the women in your family, and you believe that that shaped your approach to money in your relationship. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so we have a class in our Money Roots called Money Goals and Values, where we unpack the values that you have and kind of where you got them from. And I've realized with my family, specifically the women in my family, we really believe in helping each other. So my mother was a nurturer. She was the person that would make things happen and you didn't even know how she did it. And that was passed on to my 2 older sisters who throughout my entire life, they have been, no matter what I need, they show up for me. So for me, I look at women, our role, specifically for our children and the people we love, is to show up no matter what. That sounds amazing. However, when you are in a romantic partnership with a partner who may not have that same type of value system or may see it as excessive, it can cause, you can bump heads. So what I've learned from them, I pull from that. Yes, I'm a giver, but I also have to put boundaries on it. So now within my romantic partnership, I set a budget around giving. I set a budget around how much I can help my family members. And that helps us to reduce conflict and arguments. If I do want to decide to help some of my family members, it's not going to cause an argument because it's already in our budget. But the women in my family are givers.
You know, one of the most successful things that I've seen work with the people that I work with who are in relationships who have some different values surrounding money is setting a certain amount of money each month that each person gets to spend however they choose. And so because we know you might not like my hobby or I might not like that you like to help your extended family, but we each have that budget where it's like spend it as you wish, no questions asked. I've seen that be one of the most successful things to reduce the conflict.
It's a splurge account. That's what I call it. So, and you have to have that. So my partner loves Legos. I do not like Legos. And Legos, for the folks out there, you can get a set that costs $1,000. So for me, that is a completely irrational spend. However, he loves it. Go spend money on your Legos. I won't say anything about it. Me, on the other hand, I may spend it on another pair of black pants.
Yes.
But I think you have to give space within your partnership for you to spend on things that you love. It could be amazing thread count sheets. It could be experiences on fancy dinners, but creating that space within your budget for each of you to do things that you love is deeply important, and it stops a lot of conflict.
Right. So you ask people when they are going into talking about finances with their partner, you ask them to reflect back on their earliest memory of money. And I want to know why that is so important.
So I have a question I want you to ask on your next money date night. And if you haven't created one, let's start it. And that question is, what is your first memory of money? And why that is so important is that what you will hear will help you to deeply understand your partner. I've heard from teaching the Money Roots classes everything from I learned about money through the tooth fairy, or my grandmother gave me money to go out and buy a popsicle, and I spent all the money. But you'll learn some of these various money personalities start showing up. You'll see the spender, the giver, the hyper saver, the nurturer, all of those things show up, and it'll help you to better understand your partner. So, for example, within my partnership, my partner is a little bit more frugal than I am, but I know his money story as to why he's that way. And I'm more of a spender. And by understanding the money story, it helped me stop saying, "Oh my God, you're so cheap. Why can't we do this?" And for him to say that I'm an overspender. There is more empathy and understanding with how we are with money. And that reduces the shame, and it creates a better means of communication between the two of us. So understanding that money story, that first memory of money, it helps you to unpack so much.
Whew. It can be heavy though. I mean, because there's a certain recognition in yourself of why you act that way. And then you have to recognize why your partner is acting the way they're acting towards money. And then somehow finding that middle ground there.
The middle ground is where the magic happens. Getting there can be difficult. But I really believe that when you're in a partnership with someone, it's because you love them and you want to be with them. And oftentimes, we know that money is one of the top stressors in relationships. I think a lot of that is because you just have different beliefs. There's a lack of communication, there's a lack of ground rules. And if you can start having those conversations on your money date night, it helps it to really deepen your partnership and make this experience a lot more enjoyable.
I have people ask me all the time, like, when can I start talking about money with someone that I'm dating? Like, when I don't want to ask about money, talk about money too soon. And I'm the kind of person who thinks you should talk about money on your first date. Now, certainly, you're not asking them, how much money do you make? How much money you have saved? Not those kinds of things, but asking questions and being curious about things that will give you insights in how they value money or how they spend money. If you had a choice, would you go on a long weekend locally for a staycation, or would you do a big budget overseas trip somewhere? What would be your preference? And then you would get to find out something about their values and you could talk a little bit about money, right?
Tracy, I love all of the questions you just asked because it is a reflection of our Money Roots program where you're really going deep into a person's beliefs about money. I think that is an amazing conversation starter when you're first beginning to date. What are your values? If you had the opportunity to spend $1 million, what would you spend it on? What did you learn from your parents about money? All of those questions help you to unpack and get to know the person a lot more. I would hold on the what is your credit score, what's your net worth.
Yes.
Let's understand who they are first and before you get to some of those skill-based questions.
And I think those skill-based questions naturally come out organically as you get to know each other better, right? And it won't be where you have to be nervous, like nervous, oh, I'm going to ask him about his credit score. It will be you've had routine money conversations, and at some point he's going to say, oh my gosh, I just checked my credit score last week. And it's going to come up. Like, it's not going to be this scary, scary thing, I think.
I hope it's not. And I'm hopeful that by having those softer conversations, the more behavioral conversations, it creates a place of vulnerability and really safety within your partnership so that when you get to that place of saying, I'm really enjoying this partnership so far, our relationship, but I gotta be honest. If we're thinking about getting married, I have $100,000 in student loan debt. And now you're looking at it through the lens of, okay, I understand the history. I know this person is working really hard to pay it off. Now, if we decide to move forward, how are we going to do it together? But when you hide those things and you end up getting married, that's where all of the friction comes. So definitely make this a part of your dating experience. Start out with some of those values-based questions so that you can get to know the person a lot better, and then we'll get into more of the hard-hitting numbers.
As you are getting serious with someone, to me, it's about the transparency. It's not about judging each other, but when people start hiding what's been going on, that's when the problem is. If you come into a relationship and tell me, I'm really embarrassed. I've got $40,000 in credit card debt right now, and I don't see any way out. I don't know how I'm ever gonna get that paid off, but I wanna be honest that that's what I have. I can deal with that if I have the information. If you're hiding it, I wouldn't there's nothing I can do with that.
And, so I have been giving this a lot of thought lately because what you just mentioned is financial infidelity when you are keeping
Yes.
secrets from your partner. Um, and for me, what comes up, and I grew up with women who told me you keep a separate bank account. You always have your own side cash of money, which I believe you should. I think you should have your own money. What I don't believe in is keeping a secret. And I think what I plan to do personally and what I encourage others is let's talk about it. Let's talk about why I feel I need to have this separate account of money. It's because I want to feel safe. And I know that things can happen in life and feeling safe is important to me. So it's definitely honesty is required and really admitting why you are hiding things because I'm
Right.
ashamed of my behavior. I'm afraid the relationship will end and I won't have anything. Those are the conversations that we need to have, not the conversation of I'm mad at you because you have a side bank account. Why do I have a side bank account or why are you hiding things? And it's oftentimes because you don't feel safe sharing it, which is a deeper relationship issue that has nothing to do with money.
Okay, I wanna bring this around now. We've talked about having those money dates, having conversations, but I wanna talk about some steps that couples can take to start having those conversations because I think to some people probably still sounds abstract, still sounds a little scary, especially if you're in a relationship where you have not been talking about money. So where can couples start?
Well, first of all, I want to invite you to our Love and Money course with Money Roots. You can go to ally.com/Money Roots. Take the class. That'll give you a lot of tips. But some of my favorite things from the Money Roots curriculum is we help people to just come up with conversation starters. So, what are your money beliefs? What are your first memories of money? What are your thoughts on joint or split bank accounts? These are all things that you could talk about during your money date night. The problem is when you have those conversations and they start to get heated. So my other favorite part of our Money Roots workshop, Love and Money, is that we help to teach you how to slow down a conversation. And we do that through active listening, which is very difficult when you're angry with your partner and you disagree. Those feelings of shame and stress are coming up. It's hard to listen. So the steps for that are you allow your partner to say what they have to say, let them get it out. And then as the listener, the active listener, I say, repeat back everything that you said. Do you know how hard it is to repeat back with everything someone says when you're angry? It forces you to actively listen. So you repeat it back. You ask them, did I get that right? Am I hearing you correctly? And they'll say yes or no. And then you'll say, is there more? And they'll say yes or no. And then from there, if we're good with what was said, may I have permission to give a different perspective or add on to this conversation? This helps in those money conversations so much because it slows down the conversation. The active listening requires you to be fully present and not to bring in emotions or say things that were not said. And it allows you to repeat back to each other what was said and get to a place of moving forward with the conversation. I love money date nights and I want everybody to have a great time having them, but I realize that it can escalate into something that is hard to navigate. So in those instances, you definitely want to slow down the conversation.
I love giving people words to use in difficult conversations, phrases like saying to your partner, "Would you be open to hearing another perspective on this? Would you ever consider an alternate approach to that? Could we talk about some options that maybe you didn't think were on the table but could be on the table?" All those kinds of things, I think helping people, imagine what kinds of wording you could use that is non-judgmental, non-accusatory, I think is helpful.
Yeah, it's the shift from you. You always do this. You make me feel this and moving to a I. Did I hear you correctly? Is there more? Can I jump in and give a different perspective? So really taking ownership of your piece of the conversation. And also, I really think it's going into it with empathy of understanding your partner. And they're coming into this relationship with a whole baggage of stuff. And you're coming into it with a whole bunch of stuff that has now created your partnership. So understanding good intent so that you can move forward with the conversation.
Okay, we are going to link in the show notes to the Money Roots program. I want you to tell us just a little bit more about it for anyone who might be interested in getting some of that incredible content.
Yes, so Money Roots is a curriculum that we created here at Ally last year with the goal of helping people to have a better relationship with money. And it's completely free. I can't say it enough, it's free. Each of our sessions are about an hour long, and we have 4 sessions. The first is Money and You, where we help you to think about really your mindset around money. And if you are in a negative space, how to shift to a more positive mindset, which will then directly impact your actions with money. That's the first one. The second is money story. So we talked about that a little bit of really looking at your history, things you learn from society, your family, and how that impacts your relationship with money today. The third one is money goals and values, where we go deep into what are your values? What are your financial goals? And then the magical piece of that is your spending, saving, and giving in alignment with those goals and values? I must say, for most people, it is not. And then our fourth one is Love and Money, where it's really bringing in all of those aspects of the other 3 courses, but helping you to navigate values and mindset and history, but with your romantic partner.
Well, you are speaking my language. Thank you so much for bringing such wonderful insight and fantastic energy to this
Thank
conversation.
you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.